Sundown Close-Up. One presidential debate is in the books, but some voters are left feeling flat.
I just thought I wish there was a better choice than either of the two of them.
Now, there is another option. I am joined in studio by the Libertarian ticket, Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. Also, what's it like to go from revolution rock star to high-profile surrogate? We're going to sit down with Bernie Sanders to find out. And Donald Trump responds to the latest attacks, ranging from his alleged behavior with women to accusations that he violated the U.S. embargo with Cuba in a one-on-one interview during his latest stop in the Granite State. And good morning, everyone. I'm Josh McKelvin. Thanks for joining us. If you measure by the resume, they are as qualified as anyone. Combined, they have 16 years executive experience as governors of their respective states, and they've gotten the attention of a lot of voters who are, let's call it, unsatisfied with the major party nominees for president. I am joined this morning by a Libertarian Party ticket. First, Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico and Governor Bill Weld of Massachusetts. Good to see you. Yeah. Massachusetts and New Mexico. We've got to start by asking this. How did this merger happen, Governor Johnson?
Bill Weld has always been a political role model to me, so we overlapped as governors. He'd served his first term. I got elected. He was my role model. Holy cow. Beyond my wildest dreams, this guy's my running mate.
How did this come to be?
Well, the first time I ever saw any image of Gary Johnson, it was an ad he ran in his campaign to be a Republican governor. He was coming down a mountain skiing about 150 miles an hour, giant slalom, goes up, does a double flip in air, and then lands in a pail of water in his skis. I said, we got to have this guy as one of our brethren here. So we did, and Gary and I had a great time together as governors. I've always been a big fan of his. So the discussion with us deciding to get together this year was a very short one. All it required was for him to ask, and I'm so glad he did.
And clearly there's an appetite out there in the electorate for something other than what we're seeing in the major parties between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. What kind of campaign are you running? Is it traditional? Would you call it traditional?
Well, positive, certainly. And the fact that, that we're at 10% plus in the polls, I just think speaks volumes to the amount of money that we are spending, the attention that we are getting. And we weren't wallflowers as governors of our respective states. So when we say that we're fiscally conservative, there's a track record to go along with that. When we say we're socially inclusive, there's a track record to go along with that. When we say we're skeptical of military interventions and what's happening around the world, you know what? We'll back that up with the fact that we were not wallflowers in our respective states. And when we talk about free trade, really, that is about more U.S. jobs, not less U.S. jobs.
Now, this week, the vice presidential nominees are going to be debating. We've already had the first debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Governor Weld, how frustrating is it, knowing right now, at least, that you're not up there on stage making your case?
Well, of course, I'd always love to be up on stage. I've got a history of that, but I don't get frustrated. We're both happy warriors, and we're continuing to take our story around. It's a pretty good story. We think we have winning arguments, and, Gary sometimes says there's a four-lane highway up the middle between the two parties, because, the Democrat Party, no one would confuse them with being fiscally responsible these days with what they're promising, and the Republican Party is even more mean-spirited than it was before their convention in Cleveland, and, the Donald is trying to pit group against group and set everybody's teeth on edge. That's not the kind of, happy warrior and freedom and liberty view that we have of the future.
In 2012, a lot of people know you from your candidacy then, Governor Johnson, here in New Hampshire. How have things changed? I mean, how would you, looking back at it from 100 feet?
Well, nothing's really changed. A lot of momentum in 2012 that got me to 1.3 million votes. A lot of people didn't view that as momentum. And Josh, I was kind of disappointed in the results, but I was told, you know what, momentum's momentum, and here it is. Now at 10% of the vote, at 10% plus, representing 15 million voters right now, a lot of attention's being given.
You talk a lot about over-regulation in this cycle. You talked about it a lot back in 2012. One area which got you a lot of attention because it's controversial. You think there's too many laws when it comes to the illegal drug trade and the use of recreational drugs. Here in New Hampshire, we have an opioid problem, a heroin problem. It's a crisis, most people call it. Where are we going wrong, in your estimation?
Well, first, that we recognize it as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. And there are all sorts of different approaches that would actually reduce those things that we care about: death, disease, crime, and corruption. Talking about marijuana legalization is going to be a state's issue, similar to alcohol. I think we are going to legalize marijuana in this country. As President of the United States, I'm promising to deschedule marijuana as a Class 1 narcotic. I think that would allow for research that needs to take place. That would also resolve the banking issues in what are now more than half the states that have legalized it either recreationally or medicinally.
So the crisis in New Hampshire and Massachusetts right now, Josh, and Governor Charlie Baker, my successor, is dealing with it in Massachusetts, is pills. That's the opioid crisis, and that's caused by doctors overprescribing. And the governor and Attorney General Healey have convened a group, including members of the doctor community, and they've agreed, okay, we're not going to say, oh, okay, you got the sniffles, here's 60 days supply of OxyContin. That's where people go haywire, and I think both governments are doing a good job focusing on that. But that's not a marijuana issue. That's a legal drugs issue.
A lot of people feel like one leads to the other, but that's something that can be debated later. As far as your campaign, your candidacy, this ticket, a lot of people will say, you know what, this is a firewall against Donald Trump because you are getting a lot of support. Others say that you're a firewall against Hillary Clinton.
Depends on who you talk to.
Sure, it does. How are you dealing with that moniker of a protest campaign?
Well, that voting for somebody you believe in is how you change things. And I really do believe we are representing most Americans. Right now, we've tied Hillary Clinton for the lead among millennials, the largest demographic group that exists in the country. Look, we've risen to this level. So I think that that's going to continue. And I think come Election Day, we're going to be leading among young people because we are talking about reform to programs, for example, like Medicaid and Medicare. They're not going to be around for young people. Talking about reforming Social Security. They're not going to be around for young people. We're leading among independents, the largest political affiliation right now. So when people talk about, look, you either got to vote for one of the two, no, you vote for the person that you believe in. That's how you're going to change things.
You know, Josh, what's really going on is the two establishment parties in Washington are trying to brainwash the American electorate into thinking you have to choose one of us because they both want to maintain their monopoly on power in Washington. I would submit they've done a lousy job exercising that monopoly power in Washington over the last 15 years, and you seem to have two parties in Washington that exist for the purpose of killing each other. And sometimes it seems like you got two establishment party campaigns that exist this year for the purpose of killing each other. As my wife often says, given all that, this is the year when voters have to think for themselves. And if people really do that, we think they're going to come our way.
Here's the pitch. Clinton gets elected, Trump is going to get elected. Does anybody think the polarity in Congress or the polarity that exists right now in this country is going to get any better? Nobody believes that. So how about electing a couple of former governors, Republican governors, that served in heavily Democrat states? Both of them got reelected. Fiscally conservative, socially inclusive. Look, that's a big 6-lane highway right down the middle that I think when we hire a bipartisan, tripartisan administration, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, and tell both sides to come together, you know, almost from a humorous standpoint, that that third scenario actually has a chance of succeeding.
And we both had Democratic legislatures to deal with. So by definition, we had to work across the aisle to get things done, and we did get things done. Nobody can deny that we were effective governors and that we moved our states in a more fiscally responsible direction with dealing with the budget and taxes. And boy, that would be a handy thing to have happen in Washington, D.C. right now. No,
by any measure, most people would agree in your home states that you both had successful tenures as governor. Governor Weld, you set a record in terms of the margin you won by for re-election. And Governor Johnson, you didn't have a whole lot of problems getting there either. But on the national stage, you know the importance of debates. Most people around the country know you from your line of, you know, my neighbor makes more shovel-ready jobs with his dog than President Obama had. How do you get on stage? How do you get people to hear you?
I have a sense that with this interview right now, this will shove us over 15%. So thank you very much.
I appreciate the sentiment on that. But seriously,
no,
I mean,
it's just
seriously, you got to keep plugging away.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a qualitative program. We think we got the best ticket if people look at it. We have a quantitative program in that only 35% of the people have name recognition for us. But if we go around, continue to do what we're doing, this last 40 days is when people really focus with laser-like intensity on the election. Inevitably, the secret is going to seep out that there's a pretty good, well-qualified third option here. When that does, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see our name recognition go to 50%. If that happens, suddenly Gary Johnson will be at 25% in the polls on the ballot test, because he doesn't have the unfavorables that the two establishment parties have. At 25%, we're going to be dangerous because we will have momentum. If I had my choice between money, organization, and momentum, the last 30 days of a campaign, I'd take momentum every time.
Let me add another element to that too, and that is trust. Look, both of us live by the notion that if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. And I think the one unforgivable in life is hypocrisy, saying one thing and doing another. Neither Bill Weld nor myself are hypocrites. Right now, how about arbiters in chief? And we are planning a partnership here, but how about arbiters in chief? When you tell the truth, first thing is that you acknowledge mistakes, and we all make mistakes, but if you're transparent, acknowledge mistakes, tell the truth, isn't that what you really want?
We have about 30 seconds to go,
leadership?
But I want to point this out. This really is more or less a partnership rather than a top of the ticket
we chose to run together from the get-go.
Two for the price of one.
Josh, let me say one more thing.
Please.
We're the free trade candidates. I think we're the only ticket that's not isolationist this year. And you know, we believe in maintaining and demonstrating military supremacy in naval and air power, and having people see that around the world. We believe in constructive engagement, cultural diplomacy, soft power. So we have the full range of tickets in international diplomacy. It's just that we're a little bit more restrained when it comes to going into a country for regime change every time we see something the other government doing that we don't like. And I think the American people agree with us and agree with Gary Johnson on that point.
Please, and you have about 30 seconds to go. Talk about being restrained when it comes to regime change. But one thing I've gotten to know about you over the years, you're not restrained about speaking your mind, that's for sure.
Well, that we need to balance.
And there's a cycle. I mean, if there's any cycle to be able to do that, it's this one, right?
Well, and balancing the federal budget, less government spending. That's for young people. That's why we do that. And personal choice, personal liberty. Donald Trump talks about stop and frisk. Where's the U.S. Constitution when it comes to all that? When it comes to our military policies abroad, look, we are promising an invincible national defense. But when we involve ourselves in regime change, Iraq, Syria, Libya, it doesn't work. We'd get out of Afghanistan tomorrow. Look, let's stop putting our troops in harm's way. And let's stop with putting civilians in a crossfire, that we put our military in this horrible situation where they're just following orders, and they follow orders to a T, and we're all proud of that, and you know, no compromise when it comes to the fact that we do have the strongest military.
Well, no doubt about it. There's a lot of people out there that hope that you have a voice, that it can get out there in the final weeks of this election. And governors, best of luck to you moving forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Josh.
Josh, thank you.
Good to see you. Be right back with a candid discussion with one Bernie Sanders. Stay with us.